Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. But today is the 15th of September 2022. And these are the stories that we'll be discussing in detail during the course of the show. We'll begin with the SCO, head of the Council of the Heads of State meeting that will be happening tomorrow. But of course, it's a two-day moot of the heads of states of all the SCO members. Our Premier Shehbaz Sharif Saab, along with our Foreign Minister and other ministers, are there in Samarkand as we speak. Our Prime Minister met on the sidelines of the conference with many important leaders, which include the Iranian leader, the Russian president, as well as other leaders that include the Belarusian leader and the Uzbekistan leader, as well as from Kazakhstan and Tajikistan. There were meetings also, delegation level meetings that were held on the sidelines. And this is, of course, a forum to not only engage all the countries that are a part of the SCO, but also to make people understand each other's perspective in order to build a common point of view. This is going to be our first segment. Our second story of the day, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the flood situation as far as Pakistan is concerned and the relief and rehabilitation efforts that are going all across Pakistan, whether it be from the federal government, the provincial governments, the NGOs, the armed forces, or individuals in their own personal capacity who are helping those in need. The BISP has also dispersed a huge amount of money to the needy people, and the government has also allocated around 70 billion for those who've been affected by it. Not only that, the Premier has been visiting different areas of the country as well to meet the people affected by the floods on a one-to-one basis. Also, the United Nations Secretary General was here, and different countries and organizations from the United Nations are also sending aid in the form of goods, in the form of water and clothes and shelter. This is going to be our second segment, the relief and rehabilitation that is occurring after the disastrous floods happened all across Pakistan. Then we'll be talking about FATF, the Financial Action Task Force technical team that was here for around 2 weeks in Pakistan, and during that time they met with different people to have a first-hand idea about whether Pakistan was moving along in the right direction as far as the conditionalities that had been put forward by the FATF is concerned. Now, Pakistan has expressed hopes that this smooth and successful on-site visit of this team is going to lead to a logical conclusion, which means the exit from the grey list, and that is going to be held in a meeting next month. This is going to be our third story, and finally we'll be talking about the International Day of Democracy that is being held all across the world today. Democracy is a very important principle, it's a very important means of governance, and it's a means of empowering the people of any nation. On this day of the International Day of Democracy, it is extremely pertinent that people understand the importance and the value of democracy. This is going to be our last segment. Let's come and begin with our first story, and that concerns the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. The Council of the Heads of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization are meeting in this two-day moot in Samarkand in Uzbekistan. Our Premier is there as well, along with different cabinet members, including our Foreign Minister. More in the following report.
The 22nd Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit is being held this week in Samarkand against the backdrop of a geopolitical upheaval challenging the world order. The world is coming to Samarkand has been the theme of preparations for the annual meeting, to be hosted by the group's current chairman, Uzbek President Shavkat Mirziyoyev. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif arrived in Samarkand, Uzbekistan on a two-day trip, and Uzbekistan Prime Minister Abdullah Aripov received Prime Minister Shehbaz upon his arrival at the airport. Shortly after arriving, the Prime Minister visited Khudkaar complex and paid his respects at the mausoleum of Uzbekistan's first President, Islam Karimov. On the first day of his two-day visit, the Prime Minister held separate meetings with Uzbekistan President Shavkat Mirziyoyev and Tajikistan President Emomali Rahman, reiterating Pakistan's commitment to Shanghai spirit. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif emphasized that global economic turbulence has necessitated the need for more cooperation among SCO member countries. Originally envisioned as Shanghai 5, today SCO member states include more than 3.5 billion people, and the SCO over the past decade has cooperated in many fields, including counter-terrorism. The Samarkand conference is taking place at a very critical time in an atmosphere of fast changing geopolitics, and a strong Euro Asian alliance is not only imperative for economic cooperation but also for regional security.
We've been joined in the studios by Khalid, Taimoor, Akram. He's the Executive Director of the PRCCSF. Thank you very much, Khalid Saab, to have joined us. Khalid Saab, SCO, founded in 2001, and Pakistan is a member since a couple of years. How important do you feel in this current global and regional scenario, as well as the floods that have engulfed Pakistan and the situation that has emanated out of it? How important is this meeting of the Council of Heads of State of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization for Pakistan?
Yes, Shanghai Cooperation Organization was basically established as Shanghai 5, as told in the previously, and subsequently the members increased, and initially the Central Asian countries, they became the members, and then back in 2017, Pakistan and India, they were given the full membership of it. Right now we have 8 full members, 4 dialogue partners and 6 observers. And in this meeting, hopefully Iran and Belarus will be given the full membership. Shanghai Cooperation Organization is a very potent organization which looks after the regional connectivity, which is very pertinent to this region, especially in the wake of CPAC and BRI. In addition to that, Shanghai Cooperation Organization also has a component which is known as RATS, Regional Anti-Terrorism Structure, which basically works on the counter-terrorism in the region. And also it has other components relating to enhancement in financial institutions, and also it caters for all the regional countries, visa regimes and other things.
All right, Khalid Saab, how important is the commitment of all the member states of the SCO to the Shanghai spirit, to the SCO vision, as has been enunciated by our Premier in a tweet that he posted some time back, that he said that the vision represents the aspirations of 40% of the world's population. 40% of the world's population is part of the SCO.
Yes, it's a very interesting phenomena that right now 40% of the population is part of the SCO, and with every passing day, the countries are increasing, and we are hearing that in days to come, countries from even Middle East would become the part of SCO. And people, some experts in the West, they equate it with the European Union model. But it is not like the European Union model. It is much more beyond that, because it is it goes with the concept of the community of shared future, where there is a win-win situation for all the stakeholders. And plus it also gives a structure for the free trade between the SCO countries.
All right, Khalid Saab, in this worrying state of geopolitical and geostrategic transformation that is happening in the region, in the world, how important is the role that the SCO could play?
SCO has been playing, since last couple of years, SCO has been playing a very important role, but in background. But lately we have seen in the wake of the Russian-Ukrainian conflict, we have seen China and the other regional countries playing a role. Also, we have seen in various other regional conflicts, and for example, Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan, they had some water disputes, and since both of them are the SCO members, so their dispute was resolved through that platform. In addition to that, there are a number of avenues which are opening up through SCO, not only in trade, not only in the banking system, but also in overall connectivity. Recently, we have seen the concept of Central South Asian connectivity.
True.
The Central Asian countries are going to get connected with the South Asian countries through a rail route, which the work has already started from Uzbekistan to Pakistan, via Afghanistan to Pakistan, connecting them to CPAC and subsequently to the Arabian Sea through Gwadar port. So all these projects, all these things are under the framework of the BRI, but most of the BRI projects are being are benefited by these SCO countries.
All right. One of the frameworks or the multiple frameworks that will be discussed during the course of the meeting of the Council of the Heads of State of the SCO will include climate change, food security, energy security, sustainable supply chains, all related to the current scenario that is engulfing the world because of the crisis in the war-like situation between Russia and Ukraine, and also what is engulfing Pakistan because of climate change.
Yes, I had already a few months back suggested to the SCO Secretariat that they must have a regional climate change mechanism, because right now if we see the climate change is being tackled mostly in Europe, and in this part of the world, in our region, we do not have any potent organization.
But why is that so, in your point of view? Why has there been a delay in order to tackle something as important as climate change?
Actually, this climate change subject was being catered mostly by the European Union countries, and they had made a central agency for that. But ever since then, no region has thought that to have an independent regional infrastructure on the climate change. But we have seen now these floods in Pakistan are unprecedented. But as the United Nations Secretary General had said, that these floods in Pakistan are not due to the fault of Pakistan.
Of course.
It is due to the fault of G20,
all the carbon emitters, the major carbon emitters.
So we need to have a regional infrastructure under the umbrella of the SCO, which should cater that all the regional countries should sit together and talk about the climate change. For example, Pakistan and Tajikistan, we share the same glaciers. We share our glaciers with India also.
True.
But there is no mechanism that we can sit together at a multilateral platform and talk. So SCO can be part of that. Also, we have seen in terms of trade, we have seen in pandemic, especially about Pakistan, that our trade with Western countries had gone down to nil. And we did not till then had our trade linkages with the regional countries. So this SCO is now providing our trade linkages with the regional countries, especially through Afghanistan. Now the situation in Afghanistan is getting better, and the land route has opened up. And this, as I said, this project, railway project, which was the brainchild of the Uzbek president, His Excellency Shavkat Mirziyoyev, in which Pakistan and Afghanistan both are signatories. So this project is likely to get completed in next 5 years. So it will connect these SCO countries with Pakistan and subsequently to Arabian Sea.
Let's talk of Afghanistan, because this is one country that you just pointed out. Afghanistan is also going through a lot of turmoil, political, economic or otherwise. How important is the role of the SCO? Because Pakistan and Tajikistan also met on the sidelines of the SCO. They also discussed Afghanistan, and it's going to be an important issue. That and of course the Russia-Ukraine conflict. How can countries that are within the SCO help resolve conflicts, issues that pertain to countries that are a part of the SCO?
This is a very interesting and important question. We have seen that in the post 15th August scenario, after 15th August 2021, once the US and NATO forces had left Afghanistan, we have seen the regional countries playing a very, very prominent and important role. We have seen Pakistan playing a role, Uzbekistan had been playing a very important role, Tajikistan had been playing an important role, and Iran. So all the countries surrounding Afghanistan had been playing a very, very important role. That is the reason that right now the Afghan government has the mixture of Uzbek ethnic Afghans, Tajik ethnic Afghans, Pashtun ethnic Afghans. They all are sitting together because all the countries bordering Afghanistan had been playing a role. And now the West has also realized this thing, that the role of the regional countries is must. But if we go back 10 years back, we were seeing that most of the Afghan issues were handled by the US or the NATO, so the regional countries were marginalized. But now regional countries are playing a very important role. And also let me tell you about the United Nations statistics. In the first 6 months of after
the
US withdrawal, the United Nations statistics are that Afghans had earned $1 billion through the transit trade facilitation. So it means now the transit trade is happening, and now the Afghans are the Afghan government is collecting their revenue through this transit trade. So whether we like it or we don't like it, Afghanistan is one of the major countries for the regional connectivity, and stable situation in Afghanistan would help not only Pakistan but all the regional countries in getting together under the SCO framework.
How important is it also for the SCO countries to guide Afghanistan on how to move forward under a new ambit of the Taliban government, so that the West could also maybe, understand and realize the Afghan perspective?
Yes, this has already started happening. Actually, I attended a conference on 26th of July in Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan took this initiative of gathering all the regional countries under one table, on a table, and talking about development of Afghanistan. And the Afghan foreign minister had made a very encouraging statement in that, and he said that we thank all the regional countries that they are now talking about development of Afghanistan and not talking about the security of Afghanistan, because in last 1 year we have seen that all the countries, irrespective that where they are Western countries or Eastern countries, they had been talking about the security of Afghanistan, and they had been showing their apprehensions, but nobody had talked about development in Afghanistan. So Pakistan, Uzbekistan and other regional countries have now started talking about developing Afghanistan. So, and since Afghanistan is also a dialogue partner in an observer partner in the SCO, so I think that under the SCO framework, Afghanistan can be guided. They can also be helped in their development.
All right. Now, our premier has met with the Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi, Russian President Vladimir Putin, President of Uzbekistan Shavkat Mirziyoyev, and also a delegation level talks with the President of Tajikistan, Mr. Rahman. This and so much many more talks are going to be held in the coming days. Looking at the SCO's agenda that includes promoting peace and stability and seeking enhanced linkages in infrastructure, economy, trade and cultural spheres, how much are these meetings and the collective resolve going to help strengthen countries like Pakistan?
Actually, this year the Uzbek government, which is chairing the SCO conference, they have kept the format in a way that they have kept day one for the bilateral meetings. So it is helping all the SCO member, the head of the states and head of the government to sit together and talk on the bilateral issues and connectivity issues. So we have seen that Pakistan has been, our premier had been meeting with all these head of the governments and head of the states. All these are very important meetings because all the regional leaders are under the one roof. So instead that you move around to 10 countries and meet with all of them. So it was a chance to explain Pakistan's point of view. And Central Asian countries especially, they value Pakistan a lot because they consider Pakistan as extended part of the Central Asia. Because if we go back, let me also tell you an interesting thing, that why this conference is being held in Samarkand. Samarkand was the base headquarter of Amir Taimoor. Amir Taimoor was a conqueror who conquered almost 50% of the world, which was discovered at his time. And Pakistan, in this part of the world where we are living, Islam came from Central Asia. A lot of people in Pakistan, they are the followers of Hazrat Imam Bukhari, Hazrat Imam Naqshbandi. So they all were from Samarkand and Bukhara. So Samarkand was the seat of excellence and seat of education in all times in the previous times. So having this conference in the Samarkand takes back all these leaders to that era where this complete area was one.
And I think it brings also back all these countries that have issues amongst them to the spirit of collectiveness, their spirit of working together to promote the region, to promote all the countries that are part of the SCO. I think that is very important.
Yes, very important. Interestingly, if you see that most of the countries of this right now, which are composed of SCO, they were connected somehow. They were connected in one string of pearls long time back. As I said, that Central Asia considers Pakistan as their extended part.
Of course.
Because of Zahiruddin Babur, because of the Mughal Empire which came over here. So if you go there, they don't say that you are South Asia. They say that this is basically Afghanistan, Pakistan is part of that extended Central Asia.
And I think that that spirit continues to emanate through meetings such as these, and I think this meeting of the Council of Heads of State of the SCO is going to pave the way for a stronger region and of course elimination of all such conflicts that exist between the countries. Thank you very much, Khalid, Taimoor, Akram Sahib, Executive Director of PRCCSF, to have joined us, to have talked about the importance of the SCO and also the historical perspective. Yes. That was very important for a lot of our viewers who did not know about that. Thank you very much,
Thank
sir.
you very much.
Let's come to our second story here, ladies and gentlemen, that concerns the flood situation in Pakistan, the relief and rehabilitation efforts that are happening, whether it be from the government side, whether it be from the NGOs, the armed forces, or people collectively who are working to help all the people who are in need. More than 33 million people need our help. 1/3 of Pakistan is underwater. The devastation is unprecedented. If you look at the latest statistics, over 1.7 million houses have been destroyed, damaged, 800,000 livestock perished, 4 million acres of food crop have been lost. The impact is enormous on the lives and livelihoods. In all of this, there are people and there are organizations that are also working around the clock to help those in need. We've been joined by Wardah Noor, founder of Khudkaar, that is one such organization. Wardah, thank you very much to have joined us. Wardah, how are you seeing the situation on the ground at the different places that you are meeting those who are in need, and are the people getting the necessary aid?
Okay, so the situation on ground, I would speak from the perspective of, because we are working in South Punjab, so I'll speak from that perspective. So right now, the flood situation, I would say, is much better. The water levels are down to a certain extent, but the situation at the ground is that people don't have their homes to go back to. So they don't have, initially organizations like ours provided them with immediate food, the government shelters provided them food, but now it's time for rehabilitation in the South Punjab. However, if we see on the side of Balochistan and Sindh, in the rural Sindh, I think there is still a lot of flood water, and there needs to be centralized effort to work around solutions on how we can move these families back to their homes. We saw a tent city was established in Kashmir. We saw there are many other places where tent cities are now being established. So I guess now it's time for the families to go back to some normalcy, and there needs to be effort on.
But Wardah, do you feel that the families can go to some kind of normalcy, looking at the fact that they have lost their livelihoods, that they have lost their homes, that a lot have lost their loved ones as well? Won't it be a very difficult phase for all of the people who've been affected by the floods?
Definitely. So as I said, some kind of normalcy. Obviously, they cannot go back to the complete normal situation. They have lost, as you mentioned, they have lost their loved ones. Even the land they were at, their homes, they are underwater now, so they cannot recover that land. So there is nothing to go back to. But at this crucial time, there needs to be intervention from the government and the private organization for the rehabilitation, to give them some sense of normalcy, to provide them with their immediate needs, to provide them with the shelters where they can stay safely. Yeah.
Wardah, the damages are going to run into tens of billions of dollars as per the latest estimates, and the real estimates will only come in a few weeks' time, where the water would have receded from all the parts where it has flooded the areas. How important will be the work of the governments as well as organizations such as yours in the months to come?
The damage has been insane, and we all know that it's not one person cannot solve all the problems that are arising on the ground. The government alone cannot solve these issues. The private organizations on their own cannot solve these issues. The international organizations, they cannot solve it all on their own. So there needs to be efforts from all over the world, from all across Pakistan. So right now I see there are a number of overseas Pakistanis who are trying to not just use their money, but their expertise in different matters to help these victims. So we see there is if I remember the name right, Jasmine Lari, she is building a solution on providing on providing the shelters, temporary and permanent shelters to the people affected due to floods. There are teams who are working on the long-term plans of creating dams to make sure that this crisis does not come again. So the efforts from the government, from the private organizations, and from the international community, both in monetary terms and in their expertise, are very crucial at this time to pull Pakistan out of this crisis. And again, this crisis, the to go back to normalcy or to restore what the damage has been done, it will take around 5 to 10 years to rehabilitate these 33 million displaced families, and it cannot be done by one person alone. And efforts of every organization, every stakeholder are very crucial at this point.
That is so true, Wardah, because it is a collective resolve of all the people of the nation as one, wherein this change can happen for the better for all those who've been affected. And you said 33 million families. The damage, in fact, could be even more, and we'll only ascertain that in about a month's time, maybe. But for the moment, of course, 33 million is also a huge number for a country such as Pakistan. It would have been a huge number for any country, even in the West, like the United States or Canada or any other country. But for Pakistan, it's even more of an unbearable situation, a situation that the country needs to really come out of. The international arena, the global, how should I say, the world is really reacting also very quickly to what is happening in Pakistan. The aid is coming around. 96 flights to date have come from across the world, from different organizations such as the United Nations as well. Of late, the Gates Foundation has also provided the money, because you said the aid needs to come in different forms, and it is coming in the forms of the items or in the monetary form. The United Nations also pledged 160 million US dollars, of which not much has come so far. Nevertheless, there needs to be a more aggressive resolve by the countries of the world to help Pakistan out. Is that resolve there in your point of view, Wardah, seeing the devastation that a country like Pakistan has gone through?
I believe that the donations are coming in from all across the world. So recently, Meta also donated. The Saudi government is also donating to Pakistan. USAID, United Nations. You mentioned a number of organizations who are donating towards the flood relief efforts. I mentioned it before in the last program as well, that these efforts are appreciated. We really appreciate the support that's coming from the international community. But we need to realize that right now we do need the monetary help, but that is not enough. This monetary help alone will not solve the problems that Pakistan is facing right now. So there needs to be a long-term plan that's coming from the world, from the countries across the world, to solve this climate crisis. We need to look into the root cause, which is the main climate change that has impacted
But
Pakistan.
Wardah, you talk about the root cause of climate change. Pakistan, as I've already talked so many times, and I'm sure you must have as well, is the least of the carbon emitters, less than 1%, but it is one of the most vulnerable countries as far as climate change. Pakistan is not responsible for these floods that have happened all across Pakistan. This devastation is not Pakistan's doing. It is the doing of the countries that have been emitting the carbon, and these are the countries that should be putting Pakistan back into shape. You said that we need much more than money. We need aid in different helps, but we also need aid, I think, in rebuilding Pakistan to be climate change ready in the future, because these floods, these devastations that we have seen are going to come back again in one form or the other in the coming years. Isn't that so?
Definitely. So if you see the climate change reports, the different reports that are put forward by the climate researchers, so you see that this is not the last crisis that Pakistan is facing at the moment. We are facing these floods. Before that, we had the issue of smog, and it is expected that in coming 5 to 10 years, number of Pakistani cities won't even be breathable. So we won't be able to breathe properly in the cities. So we see that there are companies who are investing in air purifiers, who who are building their businesses around this, but we see there is no joint collective effort from the countries who are who emit the most carbon dioxide and who are responsible for this climate crisis. We see no effort from them in solving in building the climate resilience. Other than the, as you mentioned, other than the monetary terms, we need help from the international community to build climate resilience in Pakistan, to build the resilience so we are able to face the climate crisis that is yet to come in the coming years. I think other than this, the international community, as we saw, that they need some reparations. So they need to acknowledge that it's their doings which have pushed the global south to this position. Recently, there was I forgot the name of the show, but Zulfikar Bhutto Jr. was live on an international show, and he also mentioned that the international community needs to cancel all the debts that Pakistan owes them. To solve this, the current crisis, we need the international community to not just give us aids in the monetary terms. They need to cancel our debt so Pakistan can work towards rebuilding the houses, towards rebuilding their communities, and to work on the rehabilitation of our 33 million displaced people. So I think that's what international community can do at the moment, other than the monetary.
I think the help that Pakistan needs is going to be a very long-term help, and you said it will take the people 5 to 10 years to really rebuild themselves. So we'll be needing that help, that assistance in one form or the other for the coming 5 years to a decade at least, so that we can stand back on our own 2 feet and be ready for any future calamities that could engulf Pakistan. Thank you very much, Wardah, Noor, founder of Khudkaar, to have joined us, and all the very best for all the work that you are doing in South Punjab. That was Wardah, Noor, and of course talking about the relief and rehabilitation efforts as far as the floods in Pakistan, the climate change crisis that has affected Pakistan is concerned. All the very best to all of those who are putting in their efforts one way or the other, directly or indirectly, to help those in need. Let's come to our last 2 stories very quickly. The first is on the FATF, whose team was here in Pakistan for around 2 weeks, and they have now left. Now the Foreign Office has said that the focus of the visit was to validate Pakistan's high-level commitment and sustainability of the reforms in the anti-money laundering or combating the financing of terrorism regime, and that the meetings were held in a constructive and a positive atmosphere. Now the FATF team's report is going to be discussed next month in the FATF's ICRG and plenary meetings that are scheduled to be held between the 18th to the 22nd of October in Paris, and Pakistan, of course, as the Foreign Office has said, is looking forward to a logical conclusion. Pakistan has complied with more or less all the demands that had been put forward by the FATF. Let's hope for the very best. Let's hope that next month Pakistan finally comes out of this grey list. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, our last story of the day concerns the International Day of Democracy. Democracy is extremely important for any society, for any nation, for any government to move in an atmosphere where all people are given their due rights. This year, the International Day of Democracy is going to focus on the importance of media freedom to democracy, peace, and delivering on the sustainable development goals. The United Nations Secretary General has stressed that democracy cannot survive without free press and without freedom of expression. The International Day of Democracy is extremely important for countries like Pakistan and for countries across the world. With that, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new stories and segments that pertain to you, us, and Pakistan. And I end my show with always kindly help all those who are in need one way or the other through donations or through help to all the organizations who are providing direct help to the people in need. Allah Hafiz.
The International Day of Democracy is celebrated around the world on 15th September each year. It was established through a resolution passed by the UN General Assembly in 2007, encouraging governments to strengthen and consolidate democracy. Cornerstones of democracy include freedom of assembly, association, property rights, freedom of religion and speech, inclusiveness and equality, citizenship, consent of the governed, voting rights, freedom from unwarranted governmental deprivation of the right to life and liberty, and minority rights. The notion of democracy has evolved over time considerably. The original form of democracy was a direct democracy. The most common form of democracy today is a representative democracy, where the people elect government officials to govern on their behalf, such as in a parliamentary or presidential democracy. The International Day of Democracy provides an opportunity to review the state of democracy in the world. Democracy is as much a process as a goal, and only with the full participation of and support by the international community, national governing bodies, civil society, and individuals can the ideal of democracy be made into a reality to be enjoyed by everyone, everywhere. International Democracy Day stems from our core belief that democracy requires the participation of all citizens. It is an opportunity to highlight the important role of parliaments and to celebrate their capacity and mandate to deliver on justice, peace, development, and human rights.